Hello, welcome to part 15 of my offlane guide. I realize it's been a little while, but I'm back. So I haven't really been playing a huge amount, I suppose. Um, I'm probably gonna the rest of the content is probably gonna be about initiation, what heroes to focus in team fights, things like that. Um, but for today, I thought I'd make like a sort of summary video for all the things I didn't cover up to this point. Obviously this is not formatted like perfectly. So there's some stuff that I missed out that I'm just gonna put it into one big like tips and tricks video. So this is just gonna be a pretty much a collection of random stuff, but I think it's all stuff that will be useful, no matter what role you play really. But so obviously I have cheats on because I just want to demonstrate some things. So let me turn on all vision. Um, okay, so the first thing I want to talk about are the bounty runes. A lot of people think that this is pretty much just an RNG click fest, right? But there is actually a little bit of technique for this. So what I usually do is I like to stand on top of the bounty rune, and then when the enemy is trying to click on the rune, there's a good chance that they click on my hero instead. And that will just make it slightly easier to take the rune. But obviously, it's not a guarantee. I hear some people, they go into cinematic mode and try and click it like this. It probably has a little bit more priority. It's hard to hit the model like that, right? But again, that's just one little thing I noticed. I think pro players generally, they try and stand on top of the rune as much as possible. A lot of the time, if they show up slightly late to the rune, so like say this is like 5 seconds to the rune, what you can do is you can try and body block them. So like, let's say he's walking to the rune and I just try and block him here, and then I'll take it like this, right? And he's not even in range. So, or you can use a spell. Bounty runes are very important. I would ignore most things for them or like plan accordingly. So if it's minute 5 and there's going to be a bounty rune here and there's a creep wave here, that's kind of bad already because you really want to make sure you get this rune because 50 gold for 5 people and 5 people don't get it, that's 500 gold swing. 500 gold swing is like 2 kills or a kill on their mid lane or something. It's really important. So 447 creep wave I usually drag to here just so I can take the rune, or I make sure my pulse 4 gets it. Like it's very important to contest these runes, especially against alchemist. Might even be worth dying for one if it's not first blood, but that's debatable, I suppose. um Before you take the bounty rune though, just make sure your enemy, make sure your mid laner doesn't have a bottle or anything. Like if you're playing off lane, you can take this rune probably, but you can probably leave this for your mid lane if he has a bottle. He usually wants to refill at minute 5. Um, Speaking of bottle, um, next thing I want to talk about is illusion rune and illusions in general, I suppose. Um, so let me see if I can get this to work. So let me go back to base real quick first. Um, I will buy a Manta. This might not work because it's an ally, but you can try it, right? So one thing that people usually do is, especially in sort of low MMR, they get very easily juked by PL, for example, or like other illusion heroes like that, or just illusion runes in general. There's actually a very easy way to check if something is an illusion. So let's say like this happens, right? If you click on here for illusions, you can see that for 10 seconds it says that can be disassembled, and I think the sell price is for teammates only. But yeah, so if I do create hero axe or something here, oh that's not right. Sorry, axe. Um, Create hero phantom lancer enemy. Oh well, create hero enemy phantom lancer maybe. I don't know how you do it, but the whole point is, if someone makes an illusion, the first 10 seconds of the illusion, it will say can be disassembled. Especially useful against PL, because this spell, right, he does this, and then a lot of the time he'll juke. But if you just, if he has some sort of item on him, it's very easy to sell. Obviously, for illusions lasting longer than 10 seconds, this wouldn't work. But I'm mostly talking about against PL and TB and things like that. Manta style as well, I guess. So the next part is there are certain heroes which will create the illusions, right? Like Shadow Demon. Oh wow, I don't know how to spawn heroes at all. I suppose maybe for this part it'll be easier to go into demo mode. Um, then we can come back to this later for some other stuff. Yeah, that should be fine. Um, so there are a few other ways to tell that something is a illusion, apart from the disassemble bug, which I think probably is a bug to be honest. So if I make a axe here and like a shadow daemon, um, so if he disrupts me, for this one specifically, you'll see that on the name bar it's his name, and on the minimap these are his color as well. So it's very easy to tell that these are illusions. I think all enemy created summons of your teammates will look like that, and more importantly, they'll be the wrong level as well. They'll be Shadow Demon's level. So if I'm level 30, I think that spell's on cooldown maybe. They'll still be level 1, and I'm level 30. So some other small inconsistencies, discrepancies, whatever you want to call them. So enemy Shadow Fiend illusions will have the wrong amount of necromastery. Um, so I don't know if you can buy items for enemies in this mode. Oh, you can. So if this SF kills a creep, he has a soul, and then if he pops Manta, you can see that the illusions have no souls on them. Although the illusions can actually gain souls, but I mean, you know, it's pretty rare that they have one soul, right? Some other spells are like this, I guess. I'm trying to think. Like I think the Invoker, the orbs won't show correctly as well. Um, Another one would be Magic Wand. So if someone pops Manta, then you like pounce or something, like whatever, right? Only the real one will gain a 1 charge, so you can check that. So yeah, that's pretty much it for illusions. So the next thing is these next two parts I think I have to show in the actual game. I don't think it'll work in demo mode. Um, I'm just trying to think if there's anything I forgot. Oh yeah, so this next part is more about like using illusions and summons yourself, I guess. I'll play Nature's Prophet, why not? Um, so one thing that you can do, just gonna level up 30. One thing you can do, especially if you're not so good at micro, so I'll start the game right now. So like, let's say you're not very good at micro, or you pick up an illusion rune or something that you don't really care that much about, right? For example, what you can do is you can do like, let's just say I do Nature's Call in this area, right? You just A-click this on the enemy throne, and then the creeps will like funnel down the lanes in the correct way. So it might be slightly easier if the creeps start near aggroed creeps. So if I A-click on the minimap, like on the throne here, and I have the creeps close enough, you can see that these ones are like running off into the sunset. But usually you have to like shift aggro 2 times, you know, like you, and then you'll see that as they run towards the enemy throne, they actually know what towers to hit, and they will just generally push out the lane. So this is like a really easy way to control a bunch of units without really caring or knowing how to micro. You see they like even start to beat on the creeps. Like they act like lane creeps, I guess. But it's really automated, so it's cool, I guess. The other thing you can do is like, you know, like if you make some summons and you don't really care about them, you can just use Shift Q, and you can be like, so you go farm this, and then you hold Shift, and then you A-click here as well, and then they'll just farm this camp and then this camp. I do this with illusions a lot. If you don't even want to do that, you can just do it on the minimap. So like, let's say I'm looking here, I just do Shift, 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 right, and then now they're gonna farm from this camp to this camp to this camp, whatever, right? It doesn't matter. So the next thing is let's say this is kind of a niche usage, but I've seen it happen in pro games even. So let's say you suspect the enemy are doing a smoke gank and they're coming up this hill, right? What you can do is you can there's like a hotkey for patrol, but I've turned it off because I never use it. But you can just do something like this where the creep is just patrolling back and forth, and if they come up this hill, sometimes the creep will get blocked. So if you're watching this quite intently and then the creep just suddenly like this, right? There might be a Ricky coming up invis, or they might be smoked up this cliff or something like that. I've seen that actually happen in pro games before. It's pretty big brain move. Um, you can obviously stack with illusions or whatever. So like if you're playing a mid laner, a lot of people complain about the illusion rune. I just think illusion rune is probably like one of the better ones in the game. It's better than haste and shit like that probably. But yeah, it's pretty easy to just stack with illusions. Like if you get illusion runes as TA or something, you stack your ancients in your hard camp for yourself. Can try and shift queue it a little bit around the timings. So because I'm playing mid, right, I don't really have time for this. So maybe at like 51 or something, you make them walk 2 seconds, like over here, and then they draw the aggro, and then you walk them back. You can just shift queue that. There are some spells that work with illusions, so they're better on certain heroes than others. For example, Axe's Counter Helix works with illusions. Like if they tank creeps, they'll actually spin. Abaddon's Curse of Avernus works with illusions, is really, really strong. So if you're Axe or Abaddon, and there's an illusion rune, I would just take it. You know, fuck your mid laner, but make sure that you know what you're doing with them. So Curse of Avernus, you know, you put 3 of them on the tower, they get insta silenced, or hero gets insta silenced. You guys, you know, it's really good. Counter Helix, kind of obvious, right? You just farm with it. Next thing is Glyph. It's not really talked about that much in the game. In fact, I don't think the tooltip even explains that it gives split shot. Anyway, one thing about Glyph is that it glyphs your creeps as well. So if you're diving an enemy hero like aggressively, um, especially in the offlane, right, early, you just press Glyph. It starts on cooldown, but you get it at minute 5, I think. So minute 5, you can just Glyph, and then the tower's hitting the creeps aren't dying, and then you guys just go dive the guy. I do that a lot. You can also use the glyph to tank spells which involve regen. The main example would be Monkey King, actually, because when he does the Jingu into Boundless Strike, he doesn't really heal that much off the heroes. He usually heals off like hitting a lot of creeps. So if you see that he's doing that shit, you just press the glyph. Can also do it like ends like Kunkka if he's trying to kill you with like a tide I'm trying to say Tide Hunter. I can't remember what it's called. The fucking sword splash thing, whatever, right? So there's some like niche usages. TA Psyblades, um, other things that cleave, like whatever. Monkey King is the main one. Diving is the main one. Um, during big team fights, especially if you have like some sort of big stun like Ravage or Berserker's Core, Burrow Strike, and you stun them around your tier 2 or your tier 3, just press Glyph because it makes the tower split shot onto like 5 people. I can't remember how many exactly it makes them split shot onto, but just press Glyph. It'll do so much damage. And if they're diving like this tower, right, even if you don't manage to stun them, just press the Glyph. It'll do so much damage. They're gonna get really reamed. I usually make sure that I glyph my I usually make sure that I glyph my tier 3s, not my tier 2s. So if they're doing some like death push, right, and you decide you're not going to defend this tower, a lot of people, they just feel the need to press glyph here for some reason, and then there's no glyph on the high ground. This tower is usually easier to defend. I'd probably save it for this. The only exception is if you plan to fight around this, and then for the aforementioned reason, you press glyph and it split shots onto everyone. It's pretty cool, I guess. So if the enemy team has like buffs or summons or any spells that they have to commit, like Exorcism, Shadow Shaman Wards, Alacrity, God Strength, things like that, make sure they actually use the spells before you press Glyph. I see a lot of people like they haven't God Strength, they have an Exorcism or whatever, and then they press Glyph and then they use it afterwards. It's really, really bad. Also try to make sure that your Glyph, because it multi-shots, make sure that it kills a wave, right? So when the wave is here, you press Glyph, and then the wave is dead, and then they can't really push for 14 seconds or whatever. It's better than the alternative. Especially useful at 5-minute intervals, because if you can Glyph and you kill the catapult with the tower, someone might be able to cut the wave, and then they have backdoor problems. If a tier 1 tower dies, your Glyph comes back. So anytime a tier 1 is dying, you just press Glyph, because it just comes back, so there's no reason not to. I think there's also a little bit of a refractory period, so like 5 seconds or something after the tower dies, the tier 1 dies, you still get your glyph back. So even if you fuck it up and you mistime it, it doesn't really matter. So I usually play with my announcer on for this reason, because it's like, your tower's under attack, and then you just press cliff. If it's a tier 1, I just look on the minimap what it is. So the next thing I want to talk about is spell usage. First thing I want to talk about is that I usually like ground target my stuns. I suppose we can go back to demo hero mode for this. There are certain heroes where it's like objectively better, like literally objectively better. So for example, the lion stun is actually I don't think it's double range, but it's like a lot longer range. If you target on the floor, I don't know why exactly this is. I think it might be balance reasons. I have no idea. Um, so let's say you got Marco Bot here. I got my level 1 stun, right? So let's see. So the range says it's casted here, right? So I have to walk forwards a step, right? And then line cast a stun. That's all good. But, you know, like in reality, if I just ground target it here, it actually reaches from here. Might even reach from here. Okay, it's really long range if you ground target it. Look at this. It's like double range almost. I can't remember exactly how much it is. So I'll put a ward here to mark where I am, I suppose. So this is the normal stun range. And then like the ground target stun range is all the way out here. And it might even be further because I don't know the exact sweet spot. It's like at least here, right? Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, this is basically double. And there's a lot of spells like this. Ice Path, Burrow Strike, all have extra range. And a lot of the AoE ones have extra range as well, because the game, when you click on them, it doesn't take the tip into consideration. So Burrow Strike has 140 AoE. If you stun them, you'll just hit them in the middle of it, of the 70. So hopefully that makes sense. The other thing is, if it's like a spell with cast time, whatever, like Ice Path, and you click on the enemy, the game won't take into account enemy movement speed. So if someone's running around like super fast with Surge or something, you just ground target them, it's never gonna hit. I just try and ground target usually. I only use the like hero target if I'm kind of panicking or it's really important that the stun hits, not really the range or anything else, or they're really slow or they're stunned already. But try and get into a habit of ground targeting spells is generally better. One thing that you can do is you can like precast your spells on enemy heroes with blink. So let's say that you see this guy in like the back of a team fight and all your heroes are around here and he's about to core them, right? What you can do is let's say I level my hex, right? So he's not in range right now and I'm at the back of the team fight. I can press W on him and my hero starts to walk towards him, right? But what this means is that you just keep pressing W and then you keep cancelling the walk forwards, and then the moment he blinks in, he'll get hexed and it'll look like a script. So you see, like, he's instantly hexed. The second he's in range, you can even do this with the Q, right? So like he blinks into core and then you instantly stun him. It's super common that this happens in team fights, and then it's like, oh fucking hell, enemy team is scripting. They're not actually scripting, they just press W. Forehead. When someone is TPing out in the trees, try and find an example of that really. So let's say like this guy, he goes here, and then you think he's gonna TP out. I guess I need to get rid of these walls really for this to work. That's kind of annoying. Okay, well, so much for planning. At least we got moon shards. Okay, so let's say he runs into here and he's gonna TP out, right? And you get the feeling that he's gonna TP out. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll run here and they'll check, like, oh, he's here TPing out, right? But if you have a feeling, or if you have 2 stuns already, you just fucking throw the stun into the trees, right? But the other thing you can do is, what I like to do is I go here and then I just spam the W onto the where I think he's standing. So it's like in a CS:GO or some shooting game where you're like pre-aiming on them. I do this a lot in the tree line where it's like super close range stuff, right? Especially where they're trying to juke you. You just keep like, as you're walking through the trees, you just keep clicking forwards, so that the second you get vision on them, you get attacks off and spells off. It's really good against people who try to juke you. Make sure that your hero is facing the right way. This is kind of obvious, but obviously all the heroes have turn rates unless you're playing League of Legends. So if you're just waiting behind a carry, waiting for him to get ganked, I see a lot of people for some reason they're like facing this way because they're not really paying attention, and then they get ganked, right? And then you see like when I press blink, my hero has to turn around, and that's like quite. I mean, it's not super long, but it's just like unnecessary, right? Just make sure you face the right way. Sometimes turning around is actually important. So like as Magnus, if you turn around before you RP, um, you put them on the you put them on the side that lets you skewer them backwards. So I guess we can talk about that later. Try not to make your movements too obvious. There are some ways to hide your animations. Let me see if I can select new hero. So this is something that people, not everyone knows about. So for example, if you play Mirana, one super common thing that people do is they do an arrow and then they leap straight afterwards, and then you can see like for a lot of the animation of the arrow, you actually can't see it because like the Mirana's model is on top of it. There's a lot of spells like this. Like Mars God's Rebuke into Spear is good. It's hard to see the spear after the God's Rebuke, and you're also slowed, which is an additional benefit. But just try and think about like ways to combine your spells like this to make it less obvious. It's pretty common. Other thing you can do is try not to make it too obvious that you're just like straight up running at someone to use a spell on them. Like I see a lot of people in lane, especially a Sanking or something, right? There's like a bunch of creeps here, and they just like walk forwards like this, and it's like, oh, I'm about to fucking burrow strike, right? It's like everyone will see this coming. Try to make it less obvious. So like, let's say like I'm in the lane, right? I'm just last hitting, and I want to cast a spell on someone here. I'm just gonna like slowly creep up, you know, like attack like this, and then suddenly boom, you know, I'm in. But if you just do like the creeps are here and then you just walk straight past them, like this is, I mean, only a moron would fall for something like this, but you know, whatever. Um, just try not to run straight at enemies too much. It doesn't look right at all. Some spells you can use with the auto cast or not the auto cast to draw aggro. So like super obvious ones like clinks and whatever, right? So if you look here, if I make an enemy hero, um, if I just right click this or like Alt W it, right, so that I'm auto casting it, and then I right click Drow, the creeps are gonna aggro on me. But again, I don't know if this is a bug. I don't think this is like a bug per se. This is like design flaw, whatever. If you just press W and you click on someone, this doesn't draw aggro. So there's actually no reason to auto cast spells. I think on Viper, if you auto cast a spell, you even get less attack range. So the only reason to auto cast spells is to avoid carpal tunnel. And since you're playing Dota, you probably don't care about your health. So just make sure you click your spells. Not a lot of people with loud keyboards. I guess I have kind of a loud keyboard. You just hear them like clack, 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 clack all game, especially when they're like OD or Drow or something. It's super annoying, but it is what it is, I guess. Um, if you're slower than your enemy, try not to do too many auto attacks on them. I see this happen a lot, and I fucking cringe every time it happens. So let's say you're Sanking, right? You're chasing after someone. Sanking is like very notoriously kind of slow hero. So this is a pretty common scenario, right? Running after this Drow, and then you right click her. Um, let's see. So you right click her, right? And then after the right click, you try and stun, and then you miss the stun because your hero kind of falls out of range after the right click because the backswing is so bad and animation, blah blah blah. So if you have a spell on cooldown, I wouldn't like right click the enemy because your hero might get too close and do an auto attack. Like if your spell's on cooldown, I just like chase them like this, and then as soon as it's off cooldown, just press the stun. Super useful on heroes with stuns with low move speed, so like Axe, Kentar, Sand King. See a lot of people with their hoof stomp because they attack and then hoof stomp, and it leaves the enemy too much time to just walk out of the AoE. Um, you can also use this against the enemy. So if you see them doing this, you can just like um, tank the spell. But I'll talk more about that later. It's kind of complicated. Um, Also, if you stun them first, at this point you can auto attack them because they're stunned, obviously. Try to walk with your attacks. Don't get juked too hard. Super important on like Slardar and things like this. It's kind of hard to exactly show, but I suppose it'll be like you click someone and then you immediately cancel your backswing and then you keep running at them, right? Don't just like put your right click on them and then like you see there's no you don't cancel the backswing and you're not running hard at them. Especially important in Slardar because he's got the bash charges, right? Whatever. Um, during like big team fights, especially you're playing like some sort of healer, whatever the fuck, you can cast spells on this top bar here. I don't know if it works on self, it might. So like, let's say you have like a PO on your team, it's like super complicated fight, right? And you really want to force staff him out, or like your tree and you want to heal him, you can just press it on the top here. Obviously, this doesn't work on enemies for obvious reasons, but this is like super easy way to cast living armor basically. Um, Shift queuing, something that I use a little bit, not a huge amount. There's basically two use cases for it, in my opinion. The first is like, this is a pretty common scenario actually. Like, say your carry, um, that fucker, he gives you these items, right? He drops them in fountain. So, oh, just bring these to me. It's like super annoying, right? Because you're standing next to him, and you're like, yeah, let me just give you this. And it's like, this is fucking awful. And then so what you do is you just you can just shift queue all of this. I'm gonna shift queue onto the floor just as an idea. I usually do this before I even TP in, so it's like right, like, and then you just drop everything instantly into his inventory and hopefully on the fucking floor. Um, You can also use this to like heal up. So let's say you have like magic wand, and let's just say you have a minute 10 half Tarask, right? Um, and a 4 staff, right? You can shift Q these on the floor, pop your thing, and then you heal more because it's way more awkward to do it like this, right? The other thing for shift queuing is after you plant ward, you can shift queue the movement to make your movement look a little bit more natural. So like a lot of people, what they do is they ward and it looks like this to the enemy, right? It's like I place a ward and then I pause for a second and then I keep walking. What I like to do is I like to go in from like a natural angle and I just shift queue the ward. So like look at this, I'm moving the whole time. This looks super normal, right? Because usually when you place a ward, your hero stops. So shift queue the walk afterwards. Just hold shift, press the button, press the move. That looks a lot more normal whenever you place a ward. Can also shift queue or cutting a tree after you to pull with. So like, say you got like your quelling blade, right, and then you're cutting a tree, either to juke or like to pull creep wave or whatever. Um, you can just shift queue a movement afterwards. It makes it a little bit more smooth, but obviously it's not a big deal. So like, I don't know, shift V here and then right click. I don't know if you can move through that, but whatever. Yeah, you can't. It doesn't matter. There's some stuff about the jungle interaction. I guess we'll just stay here, and you can take my word for it, really. Actually, it'll be easier in the thing. Um, I'll talk about something else actually while we wait, because it takes a minute for the jungle to spawn anyway. So I'll talk about the enemy inventory. Make sure that you constantly check the enemy inventories. This is like super common advice, but it's like alarming how many people don't care. Like make sure like some like people always complain about, oh, I died to minute 11 Orchid Storm. Like how could I have seen this possibly coming? But they like show in lane the whole game, and you see them build like 2 Oblivion staffs and then go off the map. Like it's kind of fucking obvious, right? Um, so that's one thing. Um, Make sure that you check if people are buying like butterflies, so you can tell your character to buy MKB, things like this, right? If they buy Manta, then maybe your Orchid is bad, etc., etc. Maybe you need BKB against a certain Aghanims. Yeah. The other thing is when you're trying to fight in lane, make sure you check if they don't have Fairy Fire or Magic Wand. A lot of people they just fight to 20 Magic Wand charges, Fairy Fire, and then they end up losing the fight because the enemy has a spell that they didn't think they had a mana for, or they heal up too much. So always check Magic Wand. Super important. Later on, Mechanism also, I guess. BKB, Yules, Ghost Scepter, Glimmer Cape. Also, when you see an enemy support with a ward go missing off the map, um, always click on the enemy supports and see how many wards they have. Say like I'm playing Tiny, right, and I have like 3 wards at this moment, and then I walk into vision for a second, and then I walk out of vision, and I walk back into vision, and I've got 2 wards. I mean, clearly I just placed a ward like somewhere in this general area, right? It gets more complicated. Like, let's say that you had a ward like here, and you see an enemy support walk past, and then he comes back a long time later, and he's missing like 2 wards and 3 sentries. Then I'd assume like he placed the ward here and like here, and or something like that, right? Because he's been gone for a long time. So try and connect the dots. Try and think of like the timings, how long people can walk to, how fast they can walk. Take the move speed into account. Obviously, this is kind of hard, but whatever. Um, so about the jungle interactions, I guess we still have a minute to burn. Um, but there's not really much for me to say before then. Okay, we'll talk about healing real quick. Um, One nice thing about tangos is you can use the tangos before you enter a fight. So if you're going to commit to some fight with the enemy lane, you just eat a tango beforehand, even if you're on full health, and then the regen is going to carry you through the fight, right, as well. You can't do that with salves, obviously. That's why I like tangos a lot. The other thing is, if you play with Io, this is kind of niche, but you should always share with him your first tango, because he's going to be tangoing you anyway. So it's like he eats the tango, but you're both benefiting, so why not give him your tango? But yeah, that's kind of it's kind of niche thing, right? So The other thing is when you're healing up, because of the way that health works, you heal a percentage. So um, it's always better to heal with minimum stats. I'll talk more about that later. So, thing about jungle I want to talk about is that it's easier to pull dragging aggro than it is to actually pull the lane into a position where, so like you see here, like the creeps are not like directly seeing each other, but because this range creep is attacking me, I can pull into here anyway. So the aggro range of you getting hit is actually larger than the physical aggro of like physically dragging creeps into each other's visions. So especially this pool here, what I like to do is I like to just stand here and I get hit and then they come down from here, because a lot of the time the creeps don't exactly see each other properly here. It's just a lot more consistent to do it like that. The other thing is jungle creeps actually take normal enemy hero creep aggro. So I don't know why I can't create a enemy today. Oh, I can. So like when creeps are aggroed, they will follow jungle creep rules. So let's say I pull these creeps over here. Right. The first thing is you can pull the aggro off yourself really easily if you just walk away a little bit. It's useful if you're counting waves or sanking or something. But if you like attack an enemy now, while these creeps are aggro, the small camp will follow you, and this is a super easy way to disrupt small camp single pulls. If you're playing position 4, you just aggro the small camps away from the jungle or the jungle, or vice versa, basically. So that's the only other thing I have to say about the jungle is that they will use spells if there are 3 things next to them. So like the Hellbell will clap, the Centaur will stomp. So A, make sure you avoid this because this does a fuck ton of damage for some reason. 150 damage and slow. Easiest way to do it, like especially if you're playing hero of summons, I guess this is like pretty common knowledge, right? Like you have to run them away or they get clapped like that. Obviously it's kind of in bad position there. But you see like I put what the fuck mode on, so he's like constantly clapping, right? One interesting thing to note is that if you have a magic wand, or if the enemy has a magic wand, it kind of depends what happens here. This creep clapping or Roshan clapping will actually give you magic wand charges. So one thing that you can do is when you pull and then the creep claps and then there's like a pulse force standing down here in the fog, you can click in to see if his wand goes up by 1 or not. Because if it goes up by 1, it means he has vision. He saw the clap. Same with the Roche pit. If Roche slams and there's a guy outside whose one charge goes up by 1, that means they have vision inside the pit somehow. Probably with Beastmaster Hawk or some spell like that, right? So yeah, that's all I have to say about the jungle, pretty much. So next up is enemy spell usage. So some spells, when you see that the enemy has leveled it, you can play a little bit differently. So like on the rune, for example, if they level Blink on Anti-Mage, you can play way more aggressive, or like Slight Pounce, Darkseer Surge. You can like ruin them super hard in the lane. Some spells have indicators that they leveled it even if they don't use it necessarily. So like, let me just think. Like, Slidar's Bash, it will show 0 bash charges even if he's leveled it at all. So here's a normal Slardar, right? Here's a Slardar with bash. You'll see that he has the what's it called, the charges when he hits things, right? So you might not see the bash until he hits things 3 times, but you know. There's also some spells like let's see. So you got DK, although this is clearly not DK. I think the problem is like you have to like be super verbose. So like for example DK, you can like click on him and you can see that he's gaining a lot of health regen, or his armor is like +3, and you know he's level Dragon's Blood, and you can play differently than if you level Breathe Fire. So there are some spells you can check. I can't think of like too many great examples like DK, Timbersaw, Slardar, things like that. Most spells have counters. You should consider what the counters are beforehand. So like you play against Bloodseeker, really obvious, right? You just TP out. Against Rupture, this doesn't stun you. But it also means you have to play accordingly. So like if you're defending against an offlane Bloodseeker, you make sure you don't TP to this lane. Especially if you're in a losing position. You walk to this lane so that you have the option to TP out. Because if you just TP here, it just kills you instantly. It's fucking dog shit. Other spells are like Juggernaut's Omni Slash. Make sure you have creeps around you. If you start spinning the creeps, just like TP out or run away. Run into the jungle, make him omni-slash the jungle creeps there, something like that, right? What else? Like things like ink swell. Make sure you keep your distance, especially if you're ranged versus melee matchup. Slow line stuns like Nyx's Impale, like just run around a lot. It makes it really, really hard for him to hit stuns on you. If you're playing against level 6 Nyx, one thing I like to do when I'm farming, I just run around like a psychopath while I'm hitting the creeps, right? So like, as I'm hitting this creep, I see a lot of people, they just do like, you know, they just stand here and hit the creeps. But if I'm against Nyx, I'll do like random stuff like this, and then it's really hard to Vendetta into Impale. You can see they whiff that spell a lot if you move. You have to itemize against certain spells, so TP scroll against Rupture, obviously, but like, if there's an enemy in Nature's Prophet, you just buy Quelling Blade on pos 5s even, like every hero in the game. 130 gold to not die to, or to make Sprout not a 5-second stun, essentially, or 90 gold for tangos, whatever, right? There's some other stuff, like, you know, like if they buy a certain Ags that you can't deal with, you have to get BKB, things like that. So against speaking of Grimstroke and Inkswell, if you're playing against Grimstroke, it's super fucking annoying to play against because it's really hard to click the bug. One thing that I found is helpful. I don't know if this will work. Enemy. Do I not know how to spell enemy? No, I do. So like a lot of people, they're like, oh, they're like crying, like it's hard to click this bug, right? What you do is you just A click the floor. I don't know what option it is exactly. I think it's called Smart Attack or something. Smart Attack Move, I think it's called. Anyway, the point is, when he presses the spell on you, you can just A-click like near the bug, and your hero automatically attack this. Same with Weaver. No, it's super useful because those two spells you always want to click, and it's fucking impossible to click it. Like actually, I don't know. They didn't design the hitbox very well, I feel. One thing that you can keep in mind is that out of certain spells, you get free. Oh boy, this is difficult. Outward Devourer, maybe? No. Out of certain spells, you get one free action. So what I mean by that is the easiest example I can think of to demonstrate this point would be the TA versus OD mid lane matchup and the OD versus Nyx Assassin matchup as well. So this is pretty common knowledge if you play these heroes, but it's kind of random if you're new, especially. So let's say OD. Okay, well OD is fucking in prison. It's like 2 seconds now, isn't it? How long does it last? 1.75. Okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. So I shouldn't have done that. So the point is, for certain imprison spells like OD's Imprison, Invoker's Tornado, and other imprisons like that, Disruption, etc. You actually get one free move out of it. So for example, if I press W on TA here, right? I fucked it up. Whatever, we'll try it again because I was clicking on the wrong hero. You can actually block the damage as you come out of Imprison, and you can just blink out. It's the same with like Hood. So it's kind of hard because I have to click back to my hero. It's not really normal that it happens like this, right? So let's use the spell, and then I press Q. Oh man, it's fucking because I spammed it. It's fucking ridiculous, right? Yeah, well, this is the part where which I would edit out if I knew how to fucking edit videos. But hopefully you get the point anyway. And yeah, so you see the refraction went down to 11, right? I didn't take the damage, even though I came out of the thing. I didn't press it during. You can do it with Hood as well. You can Hood, blink out Tornado. One really common thing that you can do is you can actually Magic Wand or Mech or something. So a lot of people, they do the thing where it's like, cool guys don't look at explosions, right? Especially when this spell is more maxed. They leave you for dead, right? And as you come out, you press stick and you heal before you die, actually. So you can actually come back from the dead, unironically. You can be on like 100 health, you pop 20 sticks, and then OD's walked off already. It's fucking super funny. I love it when that happens. Let me think. One last thing to keep in mind about enemy spells is the nature of pseudo random. So this is kind of ridiculous, honestly. But it's something that I think about a lot. I don't know if that's normal or not. It was like just a little bit ridiculous. But the less you bash, the more you bash on subsequent hits. So my general rule of thumb is like for a spell with like 12% bash chance, you want to bash once every 8 hits, right? generally. So if you don't bash once every 8 hits, the chances go up. So this is 6 attacks with no bash, 7 attacks with no bash, 8 attacks. So you see, like, the chance is like super high at that point. But the point is, pseudo random works on creeps as well. So if you see an enemy hero has not fucking bashed anything in like 12 hits and then they start running at you, you're probably gonna get first hit bashed. It's why a lot of people, they don't understand, like, when PA crits them instantly. A lot of people, they will prime their crits and bashes. Especially lone druid players, I think they used to do it really hard with the root thing. But I do it a lot as Faceless Void. I'll hit a bunch of creeps. The moment, like, once I go over like 10 hits with no bash, I'll just start running super high at the enemy. Spirit Break as well, any pseudo random hero. I think pretty much all the percentage spells are pseudo random nowadays, so keep that in mind. This is more useful for you, but if the enemy doesn't bash a lot, take that as a mixed sign, I guess. So the next thing is blocking. So there's a lot of different ways to block. I don't really have any sort of what's it called? I don't really have any like concrete suggestion of what you should really do when you block. I noticed that even the pro players, they do all sorts of different things, so it's like super whatever. Um, um, so I don't know, let's just play Pog, why not? I have a few different ways to block depending on what hero I am. First thing to know is that if you're mid lane, I'm not a mid player, so I don't know this exactly. I think you stand like pretty much like here or something. And if you stand in the perfect place, the creeps will siphon to the left instead of splitting up, and it makes it easier to start the block. I probably did this wrong. Yeah, you see, they split up for me, but you can Google RTZ block. The way I block personally is I have the right click to move on, and then I just like step side to side in front of them. I know a lot of people, they do the thing where they stop and they like try and stop on top of them. I usually find that if you mess up once, then you're like super fucked. So I usually just like jiggle side to side. But whatever works for you, man, just do that. One thing to note is that when you're blocking this wave specifically, it will bend to the left here at this point. So you want to like also bend your hero to the left here as you're walking. There's a few things like that where you want to understand the movement of the creeps. I think the creeps will slightly bend here as well, but not as severely. It's mostly on offlane diet that I notice it. So you see like they just start running to the left, and if you keep blocking straight, they'll just walk past you. I don't know why they do that. It's fucking ridiculous, actually. Let's see. Don't block the wave if your team has a Earthshaker or something. And they go to fissure here. So a lot of the time what they'll do is they'll go here and they'll fissure here, right? And then because the enemy creeps are stuck here, your creeps run under the tower, and then as these creeps die, and then the lane bounces back to here for the next wave. And then this, I mean, this is ideal anyway, right? And then so if you have a shaker blocking here, make sure you don't block the creeps, because you might block it to like here, and or like worst case scenario, you block it to like here, and then you're fucked. Communicate with your pulse about this. Sometimes if you see 3 people on the off lane, um, on their off lane, like their support, what you can do is instead of blocking your own wave, you just run over here and you block the enemy wave, because they don't aggro on you in the first wave anymore, remember? So if you block it hard enough, your creeps will end up under the tower, and then it'll bounce back in the proper place. This is especially good if it's a losing lane, or if they have like annoying ranged heroes that'll poke you out like Drow or some fucking bullshit like that. Just be careful. If they don't show 3 heroes top, they might just come kill you here 2v2. It's kind of bad, but yeah, it's super useful if they show. So on Radiant safe lane, if you play Radiant safe lane yourself, don't block this wave unless you see the enemy team is blocking, because if you block this yourself, the natural place this lane ends up with neither team blocks is like here. So if you block, it usually ends up under your tower, and then you're fucked. What I usually do is I tell my pos 5, like, go look what they're doing. If they're blocking, I'll block. If they're not blocking, I won't block. And then that usually works. The other thing you can do is as you run up here yourself, you like aggro the creeps off. You know, you aggro and then you walk forwards, and then it just pulls them out of tower range. Do that as an offlane lot. Safe lane, you can also just walk in front and tank it so it doesn't go under your tower, because the creeps will always aggro you, even if they don't aggro the enemy lane creeps. So I think that's pretty much it. Okay, there's one or two other things. You can also block like heroes as they're running away from you, right? So I think we kind of talked about this. Enemy? How do you spell enemy? Okay, so let's say Montybot over here is like running away, and you're like a low damage hero with no spells. You can like super fuck him up. This is like stronger than a stun. Look how slow he is, like ridiculous. Obviously, real players they'll try and juke a little bit better, but if you're like some low damage hero, like some CM who casted his spells, you just like stand in front of them, just keep trying to block them as if they were green. Just try and anticipate their moves, run back and forth. One thing you also can do is like if they're trying to juke through the trees, so like a very common thing is the pos 5 is like here, and your pos 4 is fighting him, and he runs back through these trees. Um, Let me see if I can demonstrate it. So like he's running through these trees. You can orb, and you draw to here, and then you block him, and then he's stuck here. Obviously in this case, the towers can pin him to death. Usually you have to tank the tower yourself. It's usually super common on this tree line. I usually borrow strike to like this point, right? And then they're stuck, and then they have to cut trees, or they're fucking panicking, or whatever. It's super nice. Check if your enemy hero has phase boots. If they have phase boots, don't fucking block them, because they'll just run through you. Or if they're like phased in any way, like bounty hunters, invis, Skakuchi, whatever the fuck, right? One other thing is don't block enemy heroes if you have someone who's low on your team and you give them like this super common thing that happens. You want to save your team from an enemy that's chasing them, like the Kunk or something, and then you start blocking them, and then the Kunk just hits you and he Tidebringers the guy to death. Like sometimes it's better to not block. Tidebringer is the main one though. Psyblaze can also sometimes that can happen. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is enemy intentions, which is if someone is weaker than you in a lane, but they're like kind of fighting you, but not like super committing hard on you. So like they're just sort of fighting you, right? They're not casting their defensive spells. They're just kind of like keeping you there. This almost always means you're being ganked and they're just wasting your time, because why else would they play like this, right? Um, it's not something I can show like a super good example of, but just try and think about what I'm saying. I'm sure it's happened in your games before. Someone is like really half-heartedly fighting you. There's literally no reason to half-heartedly fight someone in this game unless your mid lane is ganking. Um, Kind of similar thing as well. Like if someone is playing really scared or lane, um, like they play like a pussy, and then they go like super aggressive all of a sudden on you. That means you're probably getting ganked as well. Like any sort of like massive shift in enemy um temperament is kind of weird. I see a lot like the carry is like just like super focused on last thing, and then all of a sudden he's fucking hitting me in the face. Yeah, I think that's like super weird. Like why would his playstyle change in like a minute, right? It's super random. It's especially noticeable if the enemy mid is missing, obviously. You should always try and analyze what your enemies are playing like. So if they're like kind of defensive player, you want to focus more on like aggroing them out of the lane and playing really aggressive on them if they're not going to punish you back. If they're like over aggressive player, then you can buy more like regen items and just focus on last hitting them out of the lane. Just always try and play to your enemy's weaknesses if possible. And one last thing is if you see someone who's doing something a little bit weird, always try and think why they are, because most people, well, this is going to be controversial, but most people in this game aren't stupid. So if like you see a Rubik just dancing around next to a cliff, instead of thinking like, oh, whoopee, free kill, I mean, you're going to get fucking cliff basically. So just keep that in mind. Darkseer, Magnus Pulse 5 is the worst one. They just fight you for no reason, and then they skew you under their tower, and it's like, how could I have seen this coming? It's the only possible outcome. My rule of thumb is if a hero weaker than me is fighting me, like without me forcing them to fight me, either with CC or like they don't have a good reason to, it's like some sort of trap or bait. So um I'll try to be keep that in mind and be careful. So the next thing is aggro. I'm not talking about aggression, it's the creep aggro stuff. I already made a video about this, so it's not super necessary, I guess. Um you can go watch that video. But there is one or two things I forgot to mention. Um which is, let's see, so let's say we're playing Axe, right? First thing is that creep aggro is global range, so you can aggro off people in opposite lanes to you. Um, so hopefully this doesn't mess it up. So we got the All Vision. So I see a lot of people in low MMR, you know, they fucking core to farm creeps. I'm so confused actually. Why can't I not spell enemy? That's right, isn't it? So like, let's say you're just here and you're just farming with counter helix. Instead of pressing core and wasting mana in your spell, you just click like this, and now the creeps are aggroed on you. And now you're spinning. Well, I'm not spinning because I'm world's unluckiest person, but yeah, that's how you do that. Super useful with Timbersaw, Axe for reactive armor, counter helix. It's also useful if you're trying to do some aggro tricks in lane, but you can't see who you're laning against because they're pulling or something. Other thing you can do is this is quite niche, but if a tower sees you uphill, it means they have vision here. Right now it's because I turned on all vision, but usually that means they have a ward here. The other thing is it doesn't work right now because the creeps are not aggroing because it's not minute 5 yet. But if you aggro creeps up here, right, you run up here and you TP out somewhere. If the creeps continue to follow you afterwards, it means they have vision here. So like if you see that the creeps like keep following you like this instead of running straight back over here, it means that they have vision on this cliff. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but yeah. The other thing is towers don't hit you if you are kind of. So the aggro range of the tower is actually smaller than the attack range of the tower. So if you're like here, you can actually do 3 attacks on the enemy. The other thing is if you're diving 2v2, 2v1, and you do the thing where you glyph your creeps, right? Don't just start like wailing on them immediately. I usually like to walk in like nice and close, so both our heroes on top of him, and then we start doing damage. So the tower isn't like hitting us 400 times before we're even in range to do spells and attacks, right? So this is a super common thing. You can also apply that to lane creeps. Like walk up to them before you start attacking, so you don't aggro the lane creeps and you start taking lane creep damage like from the start. Make sure that you're in range or you cast your spells already. Um, next thing is scan. This is something that people don't really use very much, or people don't talk about. So, the main use for scan I have is twofold. One, if you're ganking, might be easier in the actual map actually. One is if you're ganking a hero, especially with smoke ganks and you don't have perfect vision on where you're going, I like to use the scan to see like if there's enemies up the kill. And if there are enemies up the hill, you have to like place a ward before because then otherwise you're breaking your smoke, right? And then usually you're fucked basically. Um, so hopefully WTF works here. So like let's say that you have a let's say that you have a I don't know why ball goes up. Let's say you have a ward here, right? And you see the enemy carry walk into the jungle and the ancients and start hitting this, but you guys are smoking over kind of late. You don't know if he's still there. You know, you can just like scan up this hill to see if there's like a support here or something, and then you have to like ward here as well. Um, or alternatively, you can scan here and see if he's still here. If he is still here, you guys can like sneak up, right, and go kill him. If he's not here, then you can assume that he's like farming this one now, right, and then you walk a slightly different way. The other way you can use scan is if you're the one who's like split pushing, right? You're like split pushing, like here, you're carrying some wave. You can like scan here to see if someone TP'd in against you. You can scan here to see if someone TP'd against you. You can scan here to see if they're walking at you, etc. Or like if you're the one farming the ancients and all 5 enemies go off the map for a long time, you can like scan here, for example, to see if they're smoke ganking you, or like here. So the other thing you can do with scan is just check Roche. It's like super common, right? It's the most common one. Whenever they're off the map, you can check Roche with it. One thing that you can sometimes do, especially in the late game, was super important kill. If someone like does this juke where they like run down, but you don't know if they ran down or up, you can just scan like this entire top side. If it's red, then you chase them up here. If it's blue or like green, I can't remember what color it is. I think it's green. You chase them down here. So you just remove one of the options basically. For items usage, one thing that you can do. which is quite nice, is so I can't remember where I saw this exactly, but so this is what I usually do. I buy items like this, right? The first time I buy my hood, what I'll do is a team fight will start. I'll use hood. What's area with like big magic damage, like lion, right? Enemy. En I'm so stupid. Um, what is it? Level bots 30 maybe? Yeah, that was it. I might straight up die to this though. I should probably level up 30 times as well. Anyway, the point is, I'll use the hood, right? I'll get fingered, and then I'll press unlock combine. I'll use the pipe, and I'll get fingered again. So the first time you buy a pipe, this is something that you can actually do. I don't know if you can I don't think you can disassemble it again. But the first time your pipe gets delivered in the team fight, I would lock the combining of it, of the pipe recipe, and then I use the pipe, and then when it's out, I would unlock it, and then I pipe my team. Obviously, it's not always a good idea to do that or be that greedy with it, but you can also have like 2 buffs on you, I think. Yeah, so now I'm tanking more magic damage, right, with the pipe and the hood. You can also do this with Greaves. Greaves doesn't actually heal twice, but it does give double mana, and it also gives you a way to purge without healing. So sometimes these are not the same. So if you're playing Timber and you're saving Greaves to like remove a load, what's that item called? Vessel off yourself, but you want to save your teammate before they die, you know, you press it and then you disassemble or you assemble the Greaves and then you use it to dispel the Spirit Vessel as well. Super good way to trick enemies. Obviously, it's a super niche thing, but it's useful. Something I like to do is like especially when I'm playing mid, I'll like drop my wards here, right? And then I'll make it look like I've kind of fucked up and I'll run in front like this. So I don't have a ward. Or even better yet, I'll take the ward, I'll run up, so I'll show them I have the ward, and then I run back, I drop it here, and then I run back up as if like I placed it somewhere. The other thing you can do, like this is getting into like crazy next level strats, but say you have an invis here on your team, what you can do is you tell them to invis here, you plaster water them, right? And then to the enemy, it looks like a ward just came out of your inventory here, right? And then they come check this later, it's fucking not there. I love doing that one, it's really fun. Let's see, what else is there? There's some items you can disassemble to make other items. There's some really cool usages of it. But if you're like a new player and you're doing some tortellini guide, I guess it's not really. So like for example, you can disassemble arcane boots, and you can make the orb into Aether lens. Just keep this in mind because I see a lot of people they buy arcanes and Aether lens. I don't think that's really um reasonable. Um, Another little niche thing is like, let's say you're playing against like ancient apparition. Fuck. Oh my god. Whatever. Let's say you're playing against an enemy AA and he ice blasts you and you TP back to home, right? What you can do is you can buy a cloak for 10 seconds so that you get the magic resist, and then when you're alive you just sell it. You can also do this against like if you take damage over time, like Venomancer. One thing that I like to do is I like to buy the raindrop if I'm like barely gonna survive. The thing is, if you die, then you can't sell the cloak, but you know it's up to you to judge whether or not it will save or not. Usually I buy a raindrop or a salve against DOT, or a casual cloak against the A blast. The easiest way to check is just ping your health and sorry, not that way, like 100%. If you're on like 17% or something, sometimes buying the cloak will actually save you. So keep that in mind. The other thing is when you're buying urn or mech, make sure that you check if your team anyone's building it. Like, you just tell them in voice chat or text chat, right? Super annoying buying 2 urns, 2 mechs. Try not to make that happen. It's kind of pointless. And the last thing is make sure that you're always carrying dust whenever possible against invis heroes. So like if you're playing against Moran or something, Moran's like level 5, start carrying the dust as support or like as offlane. A lot of people overvalue their items. I see a lot of people they like carry bracers over dust when they're going for like kills. Like you're playing Night Stalker, right? And you want to kill the enemy hero with a Glimmer Cape, and you're carrying 5 strength over killing their support. Like it's super fucking ridiculous. Just make sure you carry dust. around minute like 18, like 17, whatever, just start carrying random dust against no invis heroes because people are going to be finishing their glimmer capes around that time and invis runes, whatever. Don't like losing the game because you don't have a dust is fucking so stupid. Like it's actually the worst way to lose by far. Um, Next thing I want to talk about is enemy TP scrolls. So if you see, try and keep in mind like who on the enemy team has TP'd in the last like minute and a half, and who hasn't. Because if you see that all four of them TP somewhere and then like one guy is just standing down here, you can pretty much just dive him and expect no response. However, if no one's TP'd and you dive him, then expect the fucking Power Rangers to TP in and murder you. Um, Next thing is cut down enemy trees when you're pushing. So let's see. There's different ways of doing this. Usually, the most common scenario is you have a cunning blade, right? So let's say you're pushing this tower, raiding tier one is offlane. Usually want to cut down this tree, right? Maybe this tree, and then now they can't. Like, there's no easy way. Like, look where you can TP, right? If you TP here, they can see you. Like, ideally, you want to cut down all the trees. Something like Bat Rider, Timbersaw, no, I look at this situation now. They can't TP into the trees and hit you with some like random spell, right? Also, make sure that you yourself manually cast the TP into lane for the same reason, right? So a lot of people I know they just TP onto the minimap like this, right? I always make sure I check like I'm gonna TP exactly here so they don't see me when I TP in. And then also I'm gonna stand still afterwards because a lot of people I know they like as soon as they TP in they're already walking and then they get spotted, right? Against Beastmaster Hawks and other spells like that, Treant Protector for example, try not to TP in like this, especially against like 5-man Beastmaster push. If you TP in like this and expect him not to have a Hawk here and you expect to not get caught, it's like super fucking stupid idea. Um, leave the if someone is TPing out against you, so like you're like Bloodseeker or something and they're TPing out against you, leave the TP until the last possible second. So like they'll TP out here, right? Stun them around this time because channeling a TP is like they're stunned for 3 seconds, right? So you stun them at 2.9 seconds in and it wastes the most amount of time from them. Same for any channel that's not like life threatening. So if someone's channeling like Death War and they're not really killing you, just leave it. Because if you cancel his TP, he's gonna instantly start fighting back, right? And he might do more damage that way. But obviously don't fuck it up, don't be too greedy. Another thing that's important is this is kind of common. Um, Watch how the enemy is playing, like moving, right? So let's say you're just chasing this line, you're just chopping him in the fucking back of the head, and he's running away from you. If he turns around like this is a good moment to press BKB, Shadow Dance, Pounce, whatever, right? When enemy heroes turn around, that's when they're doing shit. This is super common thing that I do on Night Stalker. I'll chase someone, I'll start hitting them, especially if they have spells like this, which require them to turn. As soon as I see the turn animation, then I'll press the silence, because that way, um, I'm wasting the most amount of possible time for them, right? Because turning takes time, and then I'm not wasting the silence on when they're not able to cast a spell because they're facing the wrong way, as well. But seeing enemy turn is like super common state of intent of what they're planning to do. You can also see that the enemy has casted some spell if you check their mana. So like Slark, obviously. Right now I have WTF on, so obviously whenever he casts this spell, you can see that his mana goes down. Things like that. It's quite useful for catching enemies out. Um, so that's everything about TP scrolls and channels. I've talked about this. The last thing is, well, there's last two things. One is gold. Whenever you're dying, make sure that you buy out. I would keep like a bunch of items in here. I think you do shift control and then you just buy like a bunch of different items that you have queued up, right? And then every time you're getting ganked to death and you don't need buyback, you just put some hotkey on this. I have it on like mouse 5, so I just like spam this until I buy out, and then you lose less unreliable gold. Because gold you spend, you don't lose on death. Um, if you don't have buyback and you're entering like the final 5 of the game to decide the fate of the game, and you have like 1,200 gold and you want to buy BKB, just buy the guys. Like, because it's better to have 10 strength than 1,200 gold if you don't have buyback. Gold is only useful for 2 things: items and buyback. So if you don't have buyback, just buy whatever you can. A lot of the time, if the game is like it's like the final 5 of the game, I'm a carry, I'm stuck in my base, I can't get to the secret shop, I'll just buy like Sanj and Yasha or something, because this is like one of the bigger items you can buy from the fountain. Or like, I'll just buy like a 3,500 gold Desolator if I can't afford the actual item I want. If it's the last fight of the game, you know, it's like desperate times. Um, um, yeah, the other thing is, sometimes if you're like a little bit off buyback, you can grab this neutral item specifically, the Philosopher's Stone. This works while you're dead. A lot of the time in the late game, you can grab this if you're like 100 gold off death, and this will actually give you your buyback. It's kind of niche, but it's happened before. Um, What's even more niche, these next two things are so fucking niche, it's ridiculous. Or the next three things. The first one is if you're playing a pos 5 against Bounty Hunter, every single gold counts, right? So when he walks up to you to Janada you, buy out on like 2 iron branches, um, and then just sell them straight afterwards. So let's say you have 100 gold and Bounty Hunter walks up to hit you. You buy 2 branches, now you're on 0 gold. You can't steal from the already 0 gold people, and then you just sell them back and get 100 gold. Uh, Obviously, Janada is like super long cooldown. It's like 20-second cooldown something. This is not. Don't fucking do this if you're like carry, because you won't be able to buy the. Like knowing exactly what to buy. This is like super niche. But that is an option. Just keep that in mind. Um, the other thing is also the next thing is also ridiculously niche. Like it's so fucking ridiculously niche. Let's say I have a bottle. And then I end up dying. Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh my fucking god, what a disaster. Okay, so let's say I have a bottle, I end up dying to this lion. And I'm like 10 gold off buyback. What you can actually do is you do, so let's see, my buyback cost right now is 67, wait, how much is it? 8,302. Okay, so what you do is you drop your bottle in fountain, and then, so it was 8,303, right? And then you get your teammate to deny your bottle, and then your net worth has gone down by 50 gold. So if you're 50 gold off buyback and you have a bottle, drop your fucking bottle and deny it. You can also do it with like dust and things, like any sort of consumable. Obviously, you know, this is like super fucking ridiculous thing to do, but you know, maybe maybe it'll help. The other like niche thing is um it's kind of connected to this point actually. It's that items that aren't even in your fucking inventory count towards your net worth. So like you see my buyback cost right now is 7,447. If I drop a Desolator, it's still 7,447. But if I kill it, it goes down. So if the enemy team has like a feeder or something, or they drop all their items, instead of breaking all the items, just put them in your fountain, because it actually counts towards their net worth, so you get more gold when you kill them, or just leaving them in your backpack or whatever. See a lot of people they just deny the enemy items whenever they see them. Sometimes this is not even like griefing, like if you steal the enemy tranquil boots, don't just fucking break them in front of his face. I mean, it does morale damage, but it's not really worth. Last two things. The first one is backpack usage. One thing is that when you're trying to put 2 items in your backpack, I usually swap them like this. This saves you a click compared to like, you know, this saves you a click, right? The other thing is keep some clarities in your backpack always. I usually keep 1 or 2 clarities in there and just swap them in and out. Try not to fill your backpack with just complete garbage. So if you're playing like some hero and you have 9 items and 3 of them are all like just items that you had earlier, like Orb of Venom that you won't ever use again or you won't ever swap in, just sell them because it's fucking pointless. Just having this like pointless gold that you're not going to spend. I see what Kezu does a lot is like whenever his fills up his slots, he just puts the items on the courier, and then when the courier gets back to base, it just sells the items there, and then you know just keep your inventory clean, basically. The last one is play with sound on against techies and Monkey King, Magnus, Dark Willow. It's super useful because the sound of the spells is actually easier to hear than the actual spells themselves. Especially Dark Willow, you hear like the and then she throws the fucking thing right. It's easier than seeing some random Dark Willow like 4,700 range away casting a spell. Monkey King obviously tree dance and techies bombs are fucking built into the game for some reason. I don't know why that is. The other thing is like it's easier to react to spells when you have sound on. So like whenever, like I think someone made a video on this recently. I think it was Black. Like whatever, dude. Fucking great hero Magnus. I don't know. Really, he's not called Magnus. What is it then? Magnar the Rhino? I don't know. What the fuck? Okay, whatever. The point is like RP is like it makes like a super distinct sound. So especially if you're like some kind of Manta dodger or whatever, it's easier to dodge off spells than of visuals. Firstly, because the sound design in Dota is actually really good. It's really easy to hear what spells are which and keep track of things in team fights. Um, and the other thing is, so like you hear this, right? I don't know if you can hear that actually, but it goes like okay. So as soon as you hear you press enter. It's easier than looking. I think the human reaction time for sounds is like average time is like 110 milliseconds, and then average for visuals is like 170. I can't remember. If you're a fucking boomer, then this might help you. And the last thing is that it's important to hear your team making calls. One problem that I have is like four of your teammates are talking Russian for the whole game, but then at minute like 65, one of them says like the game-defining game call in English. So I always keep them unmuted, even if it means having to listen to 65 minutes of fucking Russian, like four guys talking Russian, because they will just randomly talk English to you at some point. It's so like it makes no sense to me, but whatever. It's not like you'll die from listening to Russian. I hope. Um, Obviously you can replace Russian with whatever country um, is on your server. Um, so I think that's pretty much it. Um, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I missed. I don't think so. Let me just double check. Oh, this is like super fucking long video actually. And just to congratulate the people who made it all the way to the end, I'm gonna show you the #1 fucking broken trick to gain infinite MMR. Don't tell people about this. Only leave it for people who watch to the end, I guess. So what you do is you play Clockwork. You rush Octarine and Spell Prism. Where's the item? And the Arcane Blink. And then you just you level cogs, right? And then you use the cogs, and then you deny all the cogs. And then this way, you see you have 8 denies, right? And then you just keep doing this. And then anytime your teammates are like complaining about your gameplay, you just show them your fucking denies. I have like a thing where people like to compare Dota buff records with me, and I just show them I have like 960 deny record on Clockwork. So this is the #1 way to flex on people. So enjoy that basically. Okay, goodbye. Thanks for watching.